All right. Well, welcome back to another episode of Culture Chat. We are joined by the delightful Jenn Smith. She's an HR and career consultant of Flourish Careers. So, welcome, Jenn. Thanks for joining us.
Thank
So,
you guys
tell
for
us,
having me.
yeah, tell us about your heart-based coaching and career planning.
Yes, thank you for that lovely introduction. And so, at the core, I guess I would say, is that I believe that career success does not have to be at the expense of living a radiantly happy and healthy lifestyle. And this all stems from my very meandering career path, where I'll just share a little snip with you guys. Where my first job out of college, Rachel and I were talking before we hit record about the fact that I worked for PepsiCo right out of college. And I actually worked for Frito-Lay, the division. It's a division under Pepsi. And my first job after I graduated college was the graveyard shift. So I was a frontline supervisor working the graveyard shift, which is 11 at night to 7 in the morning in a potato chip factory. So there is nothing happy or healthy about that, needless to say. I had no idea what I wanted to do or what I could do or what my strengths were or anything going into the working world, but I was super career minded. And so from supervising folks in a potato chip factory, I pivoted into human resources, and that's really where I started to get my groove. And really kind of get on the people side of the business and building culture. And I loved hiring and talent acquisition. And then all of that, 15 years of doing all of that for multiple different industries and companies, decided that I really wanted to support folks in their career paths and figuring out what they wanted to do a lot quicker than it took me. So that's really where the heart-based career planning comes into play. So it's really all about finding alignment in your career a lot faster than I did, 15 years, and so you don't have to take a lot of those missteps. I think missteps are good, and they teach us a lot of lessons, and it's never going to be perfect, and we have to kind of get out there and try things. Yeah. But at the core, if someone can help you align your heart, your spirit, your energy, your strengths to your job, it can make things a lot more rewarding. And so that's kind of what I'm on a mission to do, is help people feel that in their careers.
That's right.
I love it.
I mean, the level of applicability, is that a word?
Yeah.
Today is just insane. As I think about my own sphere and people in my sphere, and just this, overwhelming sense of like, I don't like my job. I don't like my job. I hate the thing that I'm doing every day. This is not fun. And having to like take the step to say, guess what? You don't have to do it.
Yeah.
You don't. Right. You don't have to do it.
We have choices.
Now, I am not telling you to run out the door and starve your family. What I am saying is you can absolutely put together a plan that has you in a space and on a trajectory to do the things that you want to do every day. That I always say, fill your bucket.
Yeah.
So I think before you even can do that, you've got to know, and I think that's some of the work that you do, Jenn, right? Is just, you got to figure out what the what is. Mm-hmm. If you've been doing accounting your whole life, now to decide, I hate it and I want to do something else, that something else tends to sometimes hold people up. Yeah. How do you help people kind of manage through that, figuring out how to connect back to their heart and what they want to do?
Yeah, that's a great question, because the clarity piece is really the hardest for a lot of people. So I'll get folks that come to me all the time like, Jenn, I don't like my job. Can you help me with my resume? And I'll say, sure. What do you want to do? And it's always like a deer in headlights look. And I get that. I've been there. That's where, when I went from operations into HR, I'll never forget this. I had a director. He came to my site and he said, so Jenn, what do you want to do with your career? And I was like, I don't know. Do I get to decide? I don't know, So that's really when I started to kind of think about HR as a career path, and I ended up coming up with a plan because I was actually told no. So PepsiCo and Frito-Lay are very selective about their HR folks, which top caliber, amazing folks to work with. But I didn't have the right education. I didn't have the right network. I didn't have the right experiences. And so I ended up crafting a plan to build that within the company and then switch over into the HR function. And so that's what I help people do in terms of clarity. So it's really around, there's kind of like 3 big buckets. It's your core and lifestyle values is number 1. And that's I love helping people think about their career in terms of how does it fit into your lifestyle in this season. Like it's going to change. There's going to be different seasons of career. Things are going to change. The world's moving so quickly right now. But how do you want your career to fit into your lifestyle? So it's almost like, hey, let's paint the picture of the lifestyle you want and then kind of reverse engineer your career into that. So it starts with your core and lifestyle values. And then the other two buckets, I always say, are impact and energy. So impact equals industry or something you're interested in. So can you align? If you are really good at accounting, what kind of industry do you want to do accounting in? Maybe you really like sports. Guess what? The sports industry needs accountants. Maybe you really, love real estate. Guess what? Real estate needs accountants. So you can kind of do some matching and mapping that way, which I think is a really fun way. And sometimes people don't put those two things together. A lot of times, like, folks tell me they want to help people, they want to make an impact. Okay, well, how do you want to make an impact? Is it in the wellness industry? If it is it body, mind, spirit? Like, let's kind of break this down to get really clear on where you're going and what your goals are. And then the other bucket is energy. So this is really around the actual job and work that generates your energy. So if you are in accounting and you hate it and you hate spreadsheets and you hate doing the math, like, okay, what do you love doing? I actually worked with someone, now that you say that, I actually worked with somebody. I don't know if it was accounting, but she was in a job and she just said to me, she's like, I hate spreadsheets. Like, get me out of these spreadsheets. And I was like, okay, what do you love doing? Like, what do you do in on your weekends, in your spare time? Like, what really generates your energy? And it turns out that she had this whole other life, basically volunteering and doing event planning. And that she just loved it. And so she ended up staying with her same company and did a pivot into event kind of, I don't know if it was like an HR kind of coordinator, event planning kind of role to get her out of the spreadsheets and into something that she really did enjoy a lot more. So it's those three buckets: core and lifestyle values, industry equals impact or interest, and then role equals work that generates your energy or your strengths or superpowers. Does that resonate?
Love it. Oh, amazingly so. Amazingly so. Yeah, I mean, even like, I just want to go back to the first thing that you said too about lifestyle in this season, because it does change and we don't always want the same things or need the same things. Right. When we're in our 20s, we're like, we got to go, we got to do the thing, we got to and I still give this advice to 20 somethings, like, say yes to everything, because you don't know what it's going to turn into and you really don't know. So you need those experiences, you need those missteps. Where like now in my 40s, I'm like, I actually don't have to work with people I don't want to work with. I can say no to certain things, and I have a different lifestyle than I did in my 20s. I have a husband, I have a child, I have a dog, I have, there's other things and people that need my attention that I want to give. I didn't get married and have a kid to be working 60, 80 hours a week,
Exactly.
So, and there's trade-offs, right? And who knows what'll be in 20 years. So, with everything, like you said, Andy, there's choices and trade-offs, but we do have a little bit more control and power over our own lives than I think we seem to give ourselves permission or credit for having.
100. I think the system is designed to make you think you don't, right?
Yes.
If you think about it, right now, we're asking 10th and 11th graders to figure out what it is you want to do, begin to start doing that stuff so that then you can get you get accepted to the good college, but then that college is going to put you on the career path to be the thing, and that's going to be your life. Yeah. We're asking 16
when your brain's not even functioning, fully formed.
It's wild.
We are asking 16 and 17-year-olds to know what their full life trajectory is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's not real. It's totally fake. It's a thing that is.
I mean, that's why people have 3 careers in their lifetime now. Because we do
I think our generation is probably the first one that's doing that, right?
Yes.
Like the previous generation to us was like, oh, I go work at ABC company and I'm just there and I'm there until I retire. And if you think about it, they lock you into things like pensions and these things where you're like healthcare, where you're like, oh, well, I can't leave. Well, where am I going to go? Well, now I just got to wait until my pension comes through. And here's the thing.
And then I can be happy.
Yes, right. It's always, and then I'll be happy.
When I retire, then I'll be happy. Andy and I literally just
yes.
said this at a talk we were giving the other day. Like, you can be happy today. you don't have to wait till retirement.
This is true. This is so true. I say that a lot. It's like wishing your life away. Like what do you, I had that realization at one point. I was like, oh, I just have to get through this week and then I'll be able to breathe, or I just have to get through this month and then I'll be happy, or whatever. I just need to get to this job and then I'm going to be comfortable. No, like you need to do that today. You're literally wishing your life away. And that was, I came to that realization. I'm like, this is not good. Life is way too short. And that's, that's really where it came together. But it took a long time to figure that out. So, yeah.
And I think for many of us too, we physically manifest that, like when we're not happy, we are sick.
Yes.
Being in a job that doesn't fill the bucket, that we don't want to be in, waiting for next week, next month, when I retire, whatever, the quality of our life is literally making us ill.
Right. Yeah, it is, which is so sad. And the stress that just adds up to everybody's, world. And then it causes the sickness, and then you're no good to anybody, family, friends, work, anything. So it's really tricky. Yeah.
Have you seen a shift with COVID and, people having a little bit more of a aha, I won't say living totally for today, but trying to be more present, knowing that life is fleeting and we never know what giant catastrophe is coming.
Exactly.
Not to be dramatic about it, but have you seen a shift in more people paying attention and coming to you?
Yes, for sure. So it's very interesting that you say that, because I actually started my business. So I left corporate in December of 2019, thinking 2020 is going to be the best year ever. I'm starting my business. I was so excited.
Yeah.
And then March of 2020, I literally lost my breath. Like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? It was terrifying, but it ended up to be a blessing in disguise, because so many people were rethinking their lives and like rethinking what work meant to them. And they got a taste of the remote life. And, so everything changed, and I had so much more time and space and energy to be able to help more people. So it ended up to be a blessing. But to answer your question, yes, it definitely made people rethink everything. And I think that was a blessing from COVID. It wasn't just the remote aspect, which I think that was a huge blessing, because people just wanted that flexibility. Like, people are just craving flexibility in their lives. We're not children. We don't need to, be told what to do every second. We want to live our lives. And so the flexibility and then the rethinking the careers are two, like, really, I think, blessings that came out of COVID, and people just trying to find that alignment and live the lifestyle that they are craving, because now is the time.
Totally. And I would even say my kid doesn't want to be told what to do every minute of every day. And when she is, like, that's where rebellion happens, right?
Exactly.
That's when, jobs dissatisfaction and all the quiet quitting and things, that's when we see poor behavior. We know this. Micromanaging just reduces engagement, not increases it. Good. And I think I've probably had the same. I left during COVID, 6 months into it, being, working remote. And I had already worked remote, but I was already in a job that wasn't filling me up anymore. I loved it for a lot of reasons, but there was a lot of reasons why I didn't. So it was a good opportunity for me to break away. But the other, we talk a lot about work-life balance and this balance and this balance. And it's like, we're trying to move away from the balance. It's not a balancing act. It is an integration of like, this is a piece of our lives, and whether we work in the morning or at night or on the weekend or whatever, how it works for us, and take our kid to soccer, or go to the dog park, or, whatever that is. It's important. Like it's almost it's non-negotiable. Like it's the way we need to work. And I do think that's the way European countries have worked for many years too. They don't define themselves
quite successfully.
Quite successfully, yeah.
Absolutely. Because it always, sorry, Jen, it always seems that it's like, oh, if you don't do this, then you're not going to be successful. And it's like, but it's quite the opposite, because we're sicker than we've ever been. People are poorer than they've ever been. People are struggling with mental health more than they ever have. And meanwhile, you've got the Danes and, the Swedes and the Norwegians, like, we're chilling.
Yes.
I'll tell a quick story, Jen, and then I'll let you go. I was in South Africa maybe almost a decade ago, and it was a Thursday, and everyone's at the beach, and it's their off season, right? So it's like the cold time of the year, and everyone's at the beach. And I'm like, how is your beach so crowded on a Thursday? And the driver's like, well, surf's up. And I'm like,
Of course.
okay. And he goes, surf's up. We all leave our jobs and we go to the beach to surf. Like, that's what happens. And I'm like, how do you even financially sustain that? He was like, well, we're not the United States.
Oh.
Yeah, because that's not the measure of success.
It isn't.
not the
That's
measure of
right.
success.
That's right. Yeah.
They literally prioritize self, happiness.
Today, right now.
Family.
Right now, yeah.
Right this moment.
Right.
And it's everybody, right? So it's not like you're even having to lie to your boss. Like, your
Right.
boss is at the beach with you, right? So
Can you
anyway.
imagine? I love that story. Thank you for sharing that, Andy. I just had this picture in my mind of like the Thursday beach day. I mean, why not? That's amazing. It is. It's true. Even just working with folks in Europe in the summer, everyone's on vacation. It's, they're like, sorry, we're not going to get that done until September.
See you in a month.
Like, okay,
Yeah,
that's good for you. It's really true.
right.
And I remember, actually, now that you say South Africa, I remember being in Barcelona and, coming from New York where it's like 100 miles an hour and going to Barcelona. And I remember like my friend and I, we were starving, but everything was shut down because it was siesta. So like there was no place to get anything to eat. Literally everything was shut down and everyone was just like with their friends and at home and, whatever. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is real. What are we doing? We're just on this like wild ride in the United States. So yeah, we need to learn from our global friends how to slow down a little bit and enjoy life a little more, for sure. So
it seems that you have a lot of people taking that route, right? The digital nomads. You have a lot of people. I think I read somewhere the other day that the number of people with 2 passports. So people are starting to apply for passports in other countries. People are like, I'm done.
yeah.
And I don't know if it's, I'm Gen X, so I don't know if it's starting with Gen X, where Gen X never really wanted to work anyway. But carrying through to the millennials, and certainly Gen Z is like, get the heck out of here, man.
Yeah.
They're living the South African lifestyle.
Yeah,
They're like, we're just not going to do this every day.
Yeah.
On choice. Choice though, right?
Yes,
like
it's
the
their choice.
dual passports, we need choice.
Yes.
I think once we feel like we have choice and give ourselves permission to know that we have a choice, because I think we were raised to, like we were talking about before, like this is what you do.
Yeah.
You figure out what you want to do, you go to college, it's not a question, or you graduate high school, you get a job, you do the thing, and that's it. And it's like, no, I need a little bit more choice. And be okay with the season of life.
Yes.
Like what I signed up to do in my 20s is not what I'm
Right.
signing up to do now.
Shocking, you might have different interests from 18 to 32.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I can tell you the guys I dated at 18 certainly didn't end up being anybody who I married.
Thank
So-
goodness for me, at least coming from my perspective.
That's right. That's right.
It is. It's true.
But we got to try all those things. You got to try all those.
You do have to try them. It's so funny you say that, Rachel. I was thinking about that when you said it earlier about trying, because I do think that is a really critical piece of career, especially early career. And so a lot of times people say to me, like, Jen, why would you take that job working in a potato chip factory, the overnight shift? Now, one of the reasons is because it was a very grueling interview process. And I said, if I get through this interview process and get this job, I have to take it. And I always said to myself, like, do it for a year. You don't have to do it forever. It's okay. And so, but also there's like a Sheryl Sandberg quote, and it's something around like, if you're offered a seat on the rocket ship, don't ask what seat, just get on. Something to that effect. And that was going through my mind early in my career. I was like, hey, I was offered a seat on this very well-oiled machine, this amazing organization, and I'm going to take it. And I ended up working third shift for, I don't know, a year and a half, and then switched on to the day shift and had this pretty awesome career. And I'll tell you, that third shift experience, I learned more about running a business in that experience than any other job, because I did not want to be the one to call my boss at 3:00 in the morning because I couldn't make a decision. So I was making decisions, cost decisions, quality, trade-offs, like staffing, safety, like you name it. Running a manufacturing facility when you're 21 years old is insane. And so you just do it. You learn, and I knew I didn't want to do it forever, but I learned a ton from it. So
Not only is it wild, but also you didn't have to be in all the boring meetings.
Yeah, true. This is true. Third shift does have its perks, and that is one of them. You don't have anyone looking over your shoulder. Sometimes you need that when you're, early career. Sometimes you don't. But that's a really good perk to that. And I will tell you guys, warm potato chips right off a manufacturing line are delicious. So that's another perk.
Oh man,
so fun.
Gonna have to go.
Yeah.
Out now.
Yeah, right. And I love that you guys were talking about the nomad lifestyle too, because I think with technology, and that's where like the flexibility comes in and the remote work, and that's what we were talking earlier around the pandemic that people got a taste of during the pandemic was like, hey, I can actually work and live kind of integrated here or within harmony or whatever you want to call it. And so with technology, you can work from anywhere. It just doesn't matter as long as you're getting your jobs done. And that's what I always used to tell my team. I would say, listen, guys, I don't care if you got your toes in the sand or you're driving or you're surfing, whatever. As long as you get your job done, it does not matter to me. And I think that that's just like, let's measure performance and results versus time and attendance. I mean, we're adults, right? So
outcomes.
Yeah,
This is what Andy and I feel like we're preaching all the time.
I know,
it's about the outcome, not the output. But you have to be clear about what that is. You have to set expectations with folks. They need to know what is expected of them, what their job is, to make that happen, to meet those goals. Because at the end of the day, I do think people want to be successful and do a good job, and they want it part of their full life.
And why do we keep running organizations and businesses like they're manufacturing plants from pre-turn of the century?
Yes, the Industrial Revolution, right? Yeah, we have not.
It's like
caught
punching
up
a time card isn't it, and
most of us don't have those jobs.
Right.
And even in those jobs, the level of efficiency you get to if you actually give people outcome goals to attain is so much higher. So so I'm in the hospital setting. Mm-hmm. It was like, we need to generate X amount of revenue, front end revenue cycle. We need to generate X amount of revenue each day. And it was like, you're giving these people this, like, here, work this 8 hours. They're not attached to this number even at all. Mm-hmm. But if I go to you, specific rep, and say, today your job is just to get $1,000. That rep is not worried about if the clock is this or that, or you're not getting people lulling. People are now on the grind because they have something, not the grind. I don't actually like that word. I hate that phrase. But people are like, ready. They're like
motivated to perform.
Thank you. Motivated. Yeah. They are like ready. Like, I know the thing I have to do, and I understand how my little 1,000 is going to contribute to this larger big number. And we're going to talk about those things, and we're going to talk about how that connects to even the broader picture outside of my organization. Oh my gosh, people love that kind of stuff. If you just tell people you have to be here at 8, and then you get your 2 10s and a 30, and leave at 5 or 6 or whatever,
right?
Then people,
when that's the mindset, then that's what we're doing. Now we're punching the clock.
Then that's what we're doing, and we've all been there. We're like counting down the clock because I don't really have anything left to do today. I've finished all my stuff, so now I'm just here.
Oh my gosh, you guys are making me think of like this one office. I worked in HR in this office building, and there was no windows. And literally, like, we couldn't leave before the boss. You know how that goes. And it was like the 5 o'clock thing would tick, and I was like, get me out of here. It was awful. I just need the daylight. Like,
and then I'm sure you're super stoked to come back the next morning at 8. Sounds like a great place to be.
Terrible. And I love how you mentioned like breaking down the bigger goals into the individual. And that's like a big piece of, I think, like when I talk about heart-based career planning, it's actually an acronym. I always say we have to add a little more heart to our SMART. So we have our SMART goals. We have to add a little more heart to it. And the T in heart is for tiny action. So it's really breaking it down into tiny actions that we just do every single day that add up to the big picture, whether that's for your own personal development or it's, contributing to, a greater cause. So, yeah, I love that you mentioned
Rachel, is Jenn not our soul sister?
Right.
Because this is exactly what we preach. It's like, Do not try and eat the python.
Yes,
I don't know.
right.
I just made that up. Like,
How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a
right,
time.
yeah, like you got to chunk this stuff out. And by the way, for every little thing that you do, we're celebrating that victory.
Yes.
Whether it's we didn't hit the goal, but we understand why, or it's we hit the goal. So I'm about celebrating even the failures, right? We're about celebrating these little things, these tiny things that we're doing. That 1% rule, right? We're just going to take tiny actions each day, and then all of a sudden we're the subject matter experts at a thing. All of a sudden we've changed or transformed or whatever the thing is that we're trying to do.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I just love that I know you so well, Andy, because I'm like, okay, and here Andy's going to come in with the celebrate. Here's you go. I'm cute. Ding. There we go.
Perfect. It's like the orchestra. We all know. We knew exactly what's going to happen. This is flowing. That's how. This is how work should be, right? It should be fun, flowing,
fun and easy,
yeah,
and kind and loving and heart-centered, heart-forward.
Yes.
So I do want to go back to one point that you said. Like sometimes, or a lot of what you see is people don't have clarity about what they want. Like they know they're not happy, but what does that look like? And for me, I was pretty clear after my first few jobs. I did project management, I was in IT, and after a couple of years I was like, oh, not for me. And so I went back and got a master's in organizational psychology, because even in college I had a cool experience and I was like, people, this is where I want to be. Like what motivates people, what gets them to that manufacturing line every day and do good work and stay, and I don't believe it's only the money. So there's something more here. So that's always been very important to me. But because at 11 or 12 it was like you make a decision, you go into business, this is like some picture or image that you're supposed to have of your life, that even after I got my master's and had that clarity of people, I still couldn't take the leap. Like I still had too much fear, and I was good at project management. I'm still good at that. And it's always a fallback. So how do you help people give themselves permission to dive in, and overcome that fear? Because I did it a couple times, I was like, okay, master's, nope, still went back to the same job. Had another opportunity, nope, still didn't do it, and really didn't. It took me a while to follow my passion. And when it ended up happening, it still was in a pretty safe way. I ended up going after a job that I knew was the next step. I was a chief of staff executive consultant that was going to give me that experience, to your earlier point of like, there wasn't, but I could have done it sooner, maybe. I don't know, but it was a lot of fear based, I think is my point here. So.
Yeah, well, two things there. I think first of all, you answered your own question, because you said you took the next step that felt safe. And that's actually what I recommend. So like do some experiments, like figure out what is the next step that's going to keep you on the trajectory, but that's going to feel safe for you. So one of the things that it took me 10 years, literally 10 years to start my own business and like leave corporate. Like I literally thought about this for 10 years. So this is not something that happens quickly, but I think when you have the plan and you have the clarity, and then you can start taking those tiny actions. One of the things that worked really well for me was starting a side gig as a career coach, and I worked under the Muse. So if you guys know the career, they're like a career organization out in New York City. They put together great content and they hire coaches. And so I applied to be a freelance career coach under that umbrella. And so I did that kind of while I was doing my corporate job. And two things. One is I figured out people would actually pay me to help them with their careers, which this was kind of before career. This is like 2018. So career coaching wasn't really a thing just yet. It was getting there, but it wasn't like it is today. And then, so I learned people would pay me for it. And then I also, the energy, and Rachel, I'm guessing you noticed this too, is like the energy of doing the career coaching side by side the day job. It was like the day job sucked the life out of me. The energy that I got from the career coaching was like night and day. And I was like, you know what? I just have to give this a shot and let myself try this. So those are a couple things. Taking the tiny action. What's the right next step? Not this big, huge thing, like just one tiny step. And then do some experiments. See what works for you. See what doesn't work. And those are some of the things that I help folks with, just to kind of get comfortable with it before making a huge leap. So some ideas.
Thank you.
I love the test and try.
Yeah.
Test and try. Like you don't know what's going to work. There is some of the stuff, there's no silver bullet, right? Like you just got to go out, do it. And hey, guess what? If it doesn't work for you, it's okay.
Right.
You
That's
just
We
try
learned
something
something.
else.
good
We learned,
information.
we learned,
You
yeah.
figure that out
It's
before you
okay.
made any kind of leap. And I'll talk to people
That's right.
that, whether it's starting, a side hustle, or it's changing an industry, or it's changing it to a different role. Go out there and talk to people. Like, that's a step. Get some information. Find out what it's like to be a project manager. Find out what it's really like to run your own business. Like, get a peek under the tent. And then I always say that I wish there was like adult internships where we could try things like it was more normal, to try things like
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
So, but even like think about a contract role. Like maybe you could try something as a short-term contract to see if it's really something that's going to work for you. And maybe that short-term contract turns into a full-time job, because a lot of times organizations will do that. So I think there's like a lot of creative ideas that you can do, if you're kind of willing to think a little bit outside the box, and obviously got to put in the work. Like there's some effort that goes into making big changes for sure.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
That is an interesting point too, because I do find, and this might be a little taboo or whatever, that people are expecting their career growth to happen for them. Like
Oh,
it's their
yes.
manager's role, purpose to get them the next job, to be promoted, to do the next thing. And obviously I struggle with that.
Yeah.
Like it's only you in control of your career. Nobody else is making it happen for you. Yeah, you want a manager who's going to help open the doors or coach you into some of these questions and help you get clarity and narrow down. But ultimately it's up to you. And I don't know where the disconnect is. I don't know where that happened. Or even this like very quick to be promoted. Oh, all right, Andy, is it trophies for all? Is that?
It's trophies for all. It is entitlement. Like I don't actually have to do any work, and you're still giving me an attaboy because I just showed up. That honestly, to me, is fundamentally why it's like there is this level of like, aren't you impressed that I'm here?
Yeah.
And it's not that it's not special that you're there, but it's that you're not special because you're there, right? I often say to people that I coach, like, your company's investing in you. You are an investment for this company. It's not a thing. One, on the positive side, they have made an investment in you because they believe that you can support them in doing a thing. Very few companies are keeping you around if you're not able to execute things, right? So in that same token, however, you have to execute things to make that, to sort of showcase that you are a valuable asset to the company.
Right.
Now, I get it. There's lots of companies where it's like, and I think I'm not sure about you, Jen. I'm going to guess this is probably you too. I know this is Rachel. It's like, we'll do 100 things. And it's like, we did the 100 things and they're like, okay, well, can you just do 150 more?
Yes.
And when you say, hey, can I get paid for that 150 more? They're like, well, prove to us that you can do that 150 more. And you're like,
Yeah.
but I just did with the last 100. So there is a level of balance, I think, to it all. But the idea that someone is supposed to do something for us, we created, I think, a long time ago when we said, well, all you got to do is show up. It's like, well, you have to show up, but you have to also be engaged and participate. You have to be part of the system.
Yeah, I agree. And I've seen that my whole career. Basically, I've seen, folks that think like, oh, I've been here a year, I need to get promoted, or, it's my manager's job to have, this development
Career
plan
path for me.
But why? Why would you want someone else telling you what your career is going to be? It's like, no. And that's like the deer in headlights moment that I had, where my director was like, so Jen, what do you want to do with your career? I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm 5 years into my corporate career and I never thought about that. I just took whatever was coming to me. You know what I mean? Like whatever. It was just like, hey Jen, you want to do this next? Yeah, let's do it. And so like literally pausing, listening, understanding, thinking about that lifestyle, thinking about the impact, like that really makes a big difference. And then you're running towards something versus just like either going through the motions, waiting for somebody to tell you, waiting for someone to do it for you. It's like, no, take the driver's seat. I didn't make this up, but I was talking with somebody and I love this concept around thinking about your career as a road trip. So it's like you're in the driver's seat. You get to plan your path. You get to pack what you take with you. You get to decide who's in the car. You get to figure out what music you're playing, and you get to take the scenic route, or you can take the highway, whichever one you want. So that's really what it's about. And I think that's a really kind of a fun. I love road trips, so I think that's a fun way to think about it, and it gives you like a really fun visual. So I'm working on some trainings and some stuff with that right now. But it's true. Like that's really what the way, like the mindset, I think, shift that you have to take when you're thinking about it. And the other thing is, we spend 90,000, you guys have probably heard this number, 90,000 hours of our lives working. That's a third of our lives. Why wouldn't we want it to be a beautiful scenic road trip? You know? So I don't know.
Right. That I think that's exactly true. And back to what we said from the beginning, it's like you have control to do the things that you want to do with your life. So if you enjoy the highway, go, my friend. If you enjoy the scenic route, go. Like you get to make the decision. I think sometimes we relinquish some of that because we don't actually want to we don't want to have to take that step to be like, okay, if I do this. And I think that all cycles around the concept of failing, right? So we're afraid to sort of move into a different space. And I think more often than not, I know I've come up with a series of ideas throughout my career, and more times, it's family or friends that are like, oh, well, you can't do this don't leave a job without having a job.
Yes.
And don't and well, you got to be very careful because the something is the something, whatever the stuff is, right? And it's like, even in that, sometimes don't talk to your family and friends. Oftentimes get to a professional because they're going to help you get on the right path. People will unintentionally sabotage you into believing that, well, you're married and you have kids and you've got the mortgage and you have the thing and all the stuff and the stuff and the stuff. And now you feel stuck. And I can't tell you how many people use that very term. I'm so stuck.
Yeah.
It's
I
like,
hear
you
it
don't
all the
have to
time.
be.
Right. Yeah. And to that point, Andy, it's like, those people, your friends and family, they care about you and they want you to be safe. Like they don't want you to take any risks because they want you to be safe. And that's understandable because that's who they are, especially parents. I hear this all the time, like my parents. I'm like, yes, they want you to be safe. They don't want you to take risks. And we're not saying, just make this change tomorrow. Like we're going to have a plan. Right. You're going to have a plan. Yeah. And you're right around the professional. And I say this because I think having like an objective thought partner to support you can be really helpful because they're not your sister or mother or family member. And they can have that objective opinion and take that outside look at what's going on and help you map the path. So you're taking those small, tiny steps. And before you know it, you're looking back, you're like, oh my gosh, look where I just went. Like I made it to the top of the mountain. Like here I am. I can enjoy the view for a second, but I didn't, it wasn't like this huge leap and it didn't have all these risks and stuff. So yeah, really good thoughts.
Awesome. Yeah.
Awesome.
And it's not linear, right?
Yeah,
like you said, the journey, the winding, So we take pit stops along the way and figure it out again.
Sometimes you hit a patch of fog and, it's a little cloudy and you don't know really what's right in front of you, but you kind of go slower and you keep going through it and you come out the other side, it's a little brighter, it's a little sunnier, and you kind of keep going and enjoy it. So yeah.
I feel like this is where Disney messed us up, probably especially girls. Disney messed us up in thinking, like life is this fairy tale. And so you sort of go, you'll have this one dip, but then this beautiful thing happens and then happily ever after. And I'm like, how selfish. Yeah. It's like, how selfish to think that you should just stream through life without any valleys. The valleys are where you often are learning a lot of your lessons. It's often where you're making the change, the transition that's getting you back to the peak. And you just want to sit on your straight road with no hills. Like Rachel does Peloton. Like you got to have the hills, man. That's part of the whole process to get you to the next phase. You got to trek up the hill.
That's right.
So it's more rewarding that way too.
Yeah. Well, Andy introduced me to was it The Mountain Is You? Is that did I get it right? I just started reading it, and it's like I don't read books over and over again. Have you read this one yet, Jen?
No, I haven't.
Oh my gosh! In like 3 pages, I'm like, yes.
Nice. I'm definitely
gonna... And I bought it. I got it from the library because I'm like, I don't read books again. Yeah. I went and bought it because I'm like, I'm reading this again. This is going to be in my, in my repertoire of books. It's really good. It actually reminded me of I didn't want to say like a breakdown or anything, but when I was younger, I had a great opportunity to get a lot of clarity, and it was a obviously very painful lesson, but it has helped me be the introspective person that I am, that I'm proud to be. And so just having this resource again, probably 20-ish years later, is such a gift. And it reminded me too, like, it's never over. We're never done learning. We're never done growing. We have these valleys, we have the hills, like, and attention must be paid. Yeah. You can't just rest on the laurels of like, well, I was happy, so I'll just be happy. Like that, it doesn't
or
work like
guilting
that.
yourself into thinking that you should be happy. I got this great job. That was that's one. I got this great job. I got this great team. Like making great money. Like I should be happy. Like what's missing? A lot of times people will talk with me about that, and it's like, okay, but that's a should from someone else. Like what's your
from 11-year-old you had to make a career choice.
Right. What's your reality here?
Right.
Let's kind of like recenter ourselves and figure this out. So
the shoulds are strong. And I feel like that'll be a great place for you to come back and talk with us again.
I would love to
on the shoulds. So thank you, Jenn, so much for joining us. Just an absolute pleasure to be with you and hear from you and learn from you. And we'll keep the conversation going. Any final thoughts for folks who are listening here?
I really appreciate you guys today. I feel like the soul sister vibe is real here. And so I guess in terms of final thoughts, if anyone out there is, kind of considering a change or feeling stuck or not knowing what's next, kind of just pausing and doing a little bit of the internal work and kind of unpacking your lifestyle. Maybe that's where you start. Like, hey, what is the lifestyle I want to live? And then kind of reverse engineering your career and how it fits into that is a good place to start.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Take care.